Hi everyone, I'm Marlow Felton.
And I'm Chris Felton.
We didn't have a conversation.
Go Broncos.
We didn't have a wardrobe conversation prior to doing this. Chris is all formal and I'm kind of casual today. I decided Saturday I'm going to be more casual.
And we're talking about communication today.
I know, and we didn't communicate about our wardrobe, but that's not that important. Not as important as money.
Do as we
conversations.
Say, not as we do.
So today we're going to talk to you about making uncomfortable conversations comfortable. Now, why in the world would couples not have a money conversation? Well, I could think of a laundry list, right?
It's very emotional.
It's very emotional. And maybe the last one didn't turn out very well. You're afraid of how your spouse is going to react. There's many reasons why we avoid them. However, we are here to help you and encourage you to have them because they're important. The reason that they're so emotionally charged is because they're important, and it's important to have these money conversations. And keep in mind that the next money conversation you have could be the conversation that could change your life forever. I know that we've had some money conversations that were very uncomfortable. We know now how to have made them a little bit more comfortable, but they ultimately helped to transform our financial life. And if we hadn't had those, we wouldn't be where we are today financially, and we may not even be married.
Well,
right?
You know what my favorite quote around comfort is, right? Do you remember it?
Why don't you tell us, honey?
A life spent seeking comfort results in an entirely uncomfortable existence.
Yes.
A life spent seeking comfort results in an entirely uncomfortable existence. Mm-hmm. And I know this from my previous relationship before you, and I just keep the peace. I don't want to, and we were in a horrible financial mess, mainly because of me, and mainly because I didn't want to have an uncomfortable conversation. And so, that relationship didn't last, and then you inherited some of those.
Yay!
Some of those.
but I got you.
Oh, don't do it. But and so the mountain of debt and spending, and that. For the 4 years of seeking comfort resulted in an uncomfortable amount of debt, an uncomfortable amount of just financial, it was a disaster. And so that whole just keep the peace, I don't want to rock the boat, and I don't want to get them angry, and then you're kicking that proverbial can down the road, kind of like what our government does with debt and debt ceilings and all that. And so most people, they just don't have these real conversations. So.
Right. So know that the next conversation could be taking you closer to your goals and dreams, and avoiding an uncomfortable conversation now and maybe a tiny bit of discomfort could turn into a very uncomfortable existence down the road with financial ruin. So we're here to help you, and we're going to share with you some tips to having more comfortable or making the conversations easier. So the first one is always start with your ideal life in mind. So you should, I don't want to should on anyone. I know, I said should.
Facebook's not gonna like.
Oh, honey. So we would encourage you to have the conversation and determine what your ideal life looks like, what your goals and dreams are, where you ultimately see yourself financially as a couple. Have a positive conversation. And that's going to help you down the road when the uncomfortable conversations have to happen, need to happen, and when they come up, you'll be prepared because you'll already have that. And so, then it doesn't turn into this finger pointing, and you can say, well, okay, let's go back to what we talked about. These are our goals and dreams, and, this expense or spending money on this or whatever isn't in alignment with that. And so then you go back to that rather than you shouldn't spend money on that, stop spending money. Nobody likes that. That's not going to help a relationship. So really coming together and getting clear on your vision together and your goals and dreams, where you want to be, is really the foundation. and starting there. Would you not agree?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, and we live in one of the richest countries on the planet, and 4% of people actually ever become financially independent. And it's because those 4% really know what they want out of their lives, and they really know what they want, and they really, do this thing called goal setting, and they have dreams, and they communicate about it. And the other 96% just kind of, once again, spend their life seeking comfort, and it just ends up really, really bad. And so I think the challenge with all these conversations, and the challenge in any relationship, is just a gap in expectations. And thinking about my past relationships, I had an ideal about, what I wanted, and she had an ideal about what she wanted. And because, it was uncomfortable to close that gap, we just didn't ever, close that gap. And so, and then what happens also is, unspoken expectations, which we've never really talked about.
It's very dangerous.
But unspoken expectations, and we talk to a lot of people all the time, and if they're angry with us or whatever, or it's not happening, it's sometimes just these unspoken expectations, and you're not a mind reader, and so
right.
you gotta close. So how relationships work best is you gotta close those gaps on expectations.
Yeah. Okay, so the second thing is...
Do you like my tie?
I do like your tie. I actually got him that for Christmas, and this is last Christmas, and which was months ago, and this is only the second time he's ever worn it. Isn't it? Tell Chris what a nice tie this is that I got for him.
They don't really care.
They don't care. All right, so the second key...
The random Feltons.
The second key is to remember that good things can come out of uncomfortable conversations. So if you're avoiding them, that your relationship is going to grow conversation from conversation. Because think what would happen if you never talked to each other. I mean, literally, if you never talked to each other or had any sort of your relationship would dwindle, and there would be no relationship. So relationship is built on conversation after conversation, and know going into the conversation that this could be the one conversation, even if it's uncomfortable, that could change your life forever. So keep that one in mind. So then the third key is to start the conversation with your spouse's needs in mind. I know, that's crazy,
Whoa.
isn't it? So, because you know how important my needs are, right? Honey, you do. Why is it funny? It's not funny.
She happy, me happy.
Well, okay, this is true.
So our goals
He
are
knows that,
what do you want?
However,
I'll help you go get it.
when we're having a conversation, he's going to help me go get it. That's so nice of you. So when we start a conversation, I always have to remind myself, Chris is a person too. We're individuals with individual needs and wants. Of course, we have goals as a couple, but at the end of the day, we are two people. And, it's so important to always start the conversation with your spouse's needs and wants in mind, and always keep those into perspective and address them at the beginning of the conversation. Wouldn't you say that's really important?
Well, yeah, I mean, you gotta have harmony. I mean, you're a couple, you're married, you're a mastermind, you're right, and so it's when you get clear about what each other wants and you harmonize that with your ultimate end goal, then yeah, I mean, it's awesome. And you didn't really ask my feedback on the last one, but I just want to communicate because she's not focusing on my needs anyway. But but that's what our ego does. Our ego projects and makes things up way worse than they really are, right? And that's part of the ego's job. And so when you're projecting, this horrible outcome, you need to kind of stop the madness, and you just need to I'm a big believer in imaging, and imaging your ideal outcome, and
That's a great idea.
just be imaging, okay, here's the ideal outcome I want to get out of this. That's going to serve both of us together. And most people, go into a conversation with no outcome. And so when there's no outcome, they can't really be guided. And so their ego's running the show, and their ego's job is to be right and, make the other person wrong. And, you might be right, but it's going to harm the relationship. So anyway,
Yes,
that's all I have to say about that.
Oh, but that's really good. So visualizing the conversation ending in a positive way, and really having that positive outcome beforehand is incredibly powerful. And a lot of times we get so emotional and we go, just go into the conversation. You have to kind of mentally prepare yourself for the conversation. That's a great way to do it. So thanks for bringing that up.
That's just we got a lot of entrepreneurs that tune into us, and that's with if you're in the if you sell for a living, or we're all salespeople, by the way, whether you think you are or not, but just anything in life. So especially with an uncomfortable conversation, you got to do some mental rehearsal ahead of time, and that calms your ego down, right? Because when emotion goes up, intelligence goes in the opposite direction. So if you've rehearsed or pre-planned, or even rehearsed mentally all the potential negative things they could say, right, or objections they could have to what you're saying, because you've already kind of mentally lived it, your emotion's not going to go up, and you're going to stay calm and at peace. Yeah,
no, that's a great point. So
I'm on fire.
You are on fire, honey. And so the fourth key is this is really important.
Drink a lot.
Honey, he's laughing because he can see what the next one is. It's really important, and it might seem obvious to some people, but it's often overlooked, because what happens when you're drinking, or when you're tired, or when you're hungry, your emotion goes through the roof. It is not a good time to have a money conversation. So choose a time when you're relatively relaxed. For us, it's Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon when we have the best money conversations. We know that that's a time for us. Obviously, it might be different for you, that we're relatively relaxed, and we're not tired, we're not hungry, and we have not been drinking, because those are really you're in the danger zone when you combine those with the money conversation, because the emotion is just going to be too high. You really want to lower your emotions around the conversation for sure. So so just have some coffee. This is coffee. Coffee or water. Water's good too. So anything.
And that's good. I got nothing to say about that.
Okay, thank you. So then. So the fifth key is really keep in mind that the more often and the frequency of these conversations is important, because the more you have them, the easier these conversations are going to be. And when you have a system, you have your vision clear, and you meet on a regular basis. Just to recap, it's really just a recap, and you're just touching base, and it becomes a low emotional conversation, because you haven't veered so far off course that you have to bring yourself back, because every week you're checking in and making sure that you're on track. So we have a weekly financial check-in conversation around that, so that we don't veer off track. So if you're course correcting, so to speak, with your financial goals, it keeps the emotion and the drama to a minimum. So frequency, and the more you have these, the more and more, the easier they're going to become.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like working out. I mean, that first, couple times, it's
hard.
But the cool part is if you get, clear on the goal and clear on the outcome, and you kind of get over, maybe potentially some, not that the first couple of meetings have to be rocky, but, they might be more intense, and you follow the stuff that we teach, you're going to start creating momentum. And, momentum in life, business, finances, health, momentum is your friend, and you want to capture momentum. And the way you capture that is you communicate a lot more about it, you meet on it, right? And then the way you increase confidence around anything, especially money, is, you keep promises to yourself, and you keep promises to your spouse. And when you keep promises to yourself and your spouse and your family, then your confidence goes up. So confidence, momentum, all that stuff. And then the meetings, you're like, okay, we're rocking. Like, how much closer are we, getting to what we want? And now there's excitement and anticipation. And the best time of any goal is as you're going towards it. Actually, it's not actually when you hit it. there's a cool time when you hit it, but you're more excited as you're going towards it because you got that momentum and anticipation, and it's awesome.
Right. So there you have it. Those are some 5 important keys to making money conversations easier and less uncomfortable. We hope you found value in that. And if you want to read the blog, the full blog, I've provided a link for you to read the full blog of the 5 keys to having more effective and comfortable money conversations. And just remember that the next money conversation you have could be the one that could change your life forever. Just like some of the conversations that we've had. Mind blown. So thanks for joining us. Check out the link and read my blog, and we will see you next time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.